Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're all doing really well out there today. One of the things that I've struggled with since I got into self-hosting was documentation. Basically knowing what services I'm running, what hardware I've got, what specs they've got, those sorts of things I've been really bad about. And I'm hoping that I can solve that with RackPeek. So last week, I got a tweet from Tim Jones, and he's the developer behind RackPeek. And I bring that up just to help kind of quantify and qualify this application and the developer himself. I feel like with as much AI as there is in the development sphere these days, it's always nice to know who's actually behind these projects. In this case, it's Tim Jones. Here we can see he's an engineer, dad, and a dog owner. We can see that he's got a GitHub, and a Twitter, and a LinkedIn. And if we take a look at his LinkedIn, we can scroll down here a little bit. We'll see that he's in Manchester, which is great. And if we scroll down a little farther, he's currently the senior software engineer at Ecovia. Prior to that, he was a lead developer at Store Boost Retail. Prior to that, he spent several years as a software developer. So even if we look at his profile or his website here again, and we see that there's AI listed there, he's got the qualifications to use AI, as far as I'm concerned. With that many years of application development, software development, and that sort of thing, I think it definitely qualifies him to be able to safely and effectively use AI and know what code to use and what code not to use. So I just want to get that little disclaimer out of the way. But with that little disclaimer out of the way, what I want to do next is take a very brief look at the GitHub repository, just take a look at a couple of things real quick. Then we're going to take a look at the instance that I have set up on my setup or on one of my servers back here. And then we'll actually get into installing it just so you can see how easy it really is here. So let's jump over to the GitHub. So this is the GitHub repository for RackPeek. Here we can see we've got a few people watching. We've got some forks already and 162 stars on this project. And in the About section here, it says a CLI tool to discover, manage, and document your IT infrastructure and homelab. CLI is one option. We will take a very brief look at that. We're not going to install it, but I will show you what that looks like and how to install it. But there is a Docker version that we're going to explore in this video. So you can do it either command line or Docker, bare metal basically, or Docker, however you want to label that. So you can pick whichever method suits your needs better. So we scroll down, we can see lots of recent activity here in the development. It's a lightweight, opinionated CLI tool / web UI for documenting and managing your home lab and small scale IT infrastructure. You can kind of read through this at your leisure. Everything will be linked in the video description. So if we scroll down, we can see this is what the CLI version of it would look like. And then we've got a version of what the graphical user interface version made possible through a Docker installation would look like. We'll get into both of these, or we'll get into the Docker version here a little bit. But basically, we've got some Docker run commands that we can use, whether it's a Docker volume or a mapped volume on your system. Everything is stored in a config.yaml file. I had some permission issues with that initially. When I presented that to the developer, he was right on it and fixed it very quickly. Or the Docker Compose here, which is what we're going to use when we deploy this later. Basically, we've got our services. Our service is called RackPeek. The image that we're going to use here is apt-to-code / RackPeek with the latest tag. When we get into my Docker Compose that I used, you'll see a pinned version. That's just because as things were getting updated, as he and I were communicating back and forth, he was giving me new versions to try the fixes on. So I've got a pinned version of like 0.11, whereas this says latest. You can go either way. The container name is RackPeek. Our ports are going to be 8080 on the inside and the outside of the container. You're probably already using port 8080 for something. So if that's the case, be sure to only change the 8080 that I have highlighted here to something that you're not using for another service on that server. Don't change the colon or anything after it. Our volumes, in this case, we're using a Docker volume. So we've got our Docker volume here declared and where it's mapped on the inside of the container, and a restart policy unless stopped. Very standard stuff there. But down here next, we've got our volumes declared so that we can actually use that volume for our container. Once you've got that, you would just run this command here, this docker compose up-d, or you could put that in, in Portainer or Dockhand or any of the different graphical user interfaces that are out there for deploying and managing Docker containers. Now, if you would prefer to not use Docker and you would like to kind of install bare metal-ish, you can scroll down a little farther here, and there's another set of instructions that would make that available to you. And again, that would look more like what you're seeing right here. But again, here on this channel, we use Docker, so that's what we're going to explore. So here we have the my instance of RackPeek, and I don't have all of my infrastructure in here yet. I've been kind of playing with this over the last few days, and it has changed as I've been using it and updating it and that sort of thing. So what you see here is definitely not the be-all, end-all. Things will likely change. This is very, very early development. Again, this is like 0.0.11, I think is where we currently are. So just anticipate that things will change and progress and more features will be added as the developer sees fit. But again, here's what we've got. We've got our RackPeek up in the top left. We've got home, we've got CLI, we've got YAML, hardware, system services, and docs. If we look down farther here to the left, we've got our totals for hardware is 11, systems 4, services 9. Below that, we can see where that's kind of broken out a little bit. Under hardware, we've got switches, servers, access points, desktops, and routers. I was trying to combine those two in my brain right there. And you can see each of these is a link. We will start clicking on those in a moment. Below that, we've got systems. We've got a total of 4 systems. Here we've got types of bare metal and VMs. We've got operating systems. And below that, we can see Proxmox, TrueNAS, Ubuntu, and Synology Disk Station Manager. And again, all of these are links. And then below that, we've got services at the very bottom, total of 9 IP addresses, but 6 here. I'm not sure what the disconnect is there. However, this doesn't seem to be clickable. Maybe that'll get fixed or changed or whatever in the future. So let's come back up to the top of this page. If we click on hardware, this is where we can see our hardware. Imagine that. And here we can see under servers, which is where we are right here, we've got ProxCube. That's my primary system there. We've got Proxmox installed under that. Under Proxmox, we've got some more services listed. We've also got TrueNAS installed on that ProxCube server. We've got some different services installed under TrueNAS. And we've also got Plex. I wasn't exactly sure how to put all of that in there. This should really probably actually be under Proxmox and under ProxCube, but I'm still exploring, so things will probably change for me as well. But if we click on, say, Proxmox, here we can see more information about that specific system, I guess, is what we're calling it. So Proxmox is bare metal. It's got 12 cores. It runs on the ProxCube. Our operating system is Proxmox with 32 gigs of RAM. Here we can see all of the different hard drives that are in there, or the storage that's in there. If I wanted to add more storage, I can click plus, and I can select my storage type and how big it is, and click add. It's super, super simple to add different elements to each of these different things. We can click edit. If we wanted to, we could change from bare metal to hypervisor or whatever, OS, Proxmox, like you can edit all kinds of different stuff here. Tags are new. This is something that was added in one of the more recent versions. Same with notes. I actually haven't done anything with notes, but this is a note, about my system, right? Simple enough. We can click save. And now we've got a little note about our system. Tags, Proxmox, Proxmox. Sure, there's a tag. You can add tags to this as well. If I click that, then yeah, that would also be a way that you can kind of organize things into categories of sorts via a tagging system. Again, that's actually pretty new. I'm just kind of seeing this for the first time this morning. So we come back to the home page here. Here we can see tags. That wasn't populated a moment ago when we were here, but now it is. Let's go back to hardware. I guess you can't click hardware here, so we click hardware up here. That's fine. If we scroll farther down, we've got Jarvis. That is one of my Synology devices. We under here, the operating system on it is Synology Disk Manager, and under that, I've got Synology Photos running. Again, this is the system, the operating system, and one of the services running on said system and operating system. Below that, we've got access points, we've got desktops. Like if I click on this, we can see all of the specs for that Alaris One. We can see the CPU, the RAM, storage, NICs. This shows physical NICs. I wonder, I never thought about this, but it doesn't seem to support Wi-Fi for some reason. I would assume he could add Wi-Fi in there and then have a speed or something. Just one of those things I just noticed. My device has Wi-Fi, but this doesn't give me an opportunity to add it. Just a little random thing I noticed. Like for RAM, we can set how much RAM we've got and what speed it is. There's a lot of great great information that you can add to this stuff. And anything that you can't necessarily add to one of these things, again, you could leave a note about it. You could add tags to it, whatever you wanted to do there. And of course, no child systems or services, so nothing to show there. Again, if we come back, we can look at my wife's PC. I don't know what speed her RAM is, so I didn't put that in. But again, you can see all of the stuff that's available on her system as well. We've got a router, we've got some switches, we've got some access points. I don't know if access point was meant to be a wireless access point or something else, but when I think access point, I think wireless access point. So that's what I put in there. So very straightforward stuff. Again, there's additional stuff in here I didn't notice before. Maybe, again, this was added recently. UPS, laptops, those weren't in there the last time. I don't remember them being there anyway. So you can document all of the different things that you've got here. If you come into like switches, I named it, but you can click edit, put in the model. Is it managed? Is it PoE? What ports does it have? You can say it's RJ45 and it's, we'll say 2.5, and we'll say that there are, we'll say there's 5 of them, right? We can click there, and then we can see how many ports that device has. Again, tags, notes, all that kind of stuff is there as well. So very, very easy to document all of the different bits and pieces of your home's infrastructure, your small business infrastructure, whatever it is you want to document there. If we come back, home, just because that's the easiest way to get there. Systems, we kind of talked about that already. We can see, Plex, we can see Proxmox, we can see TrueNAS, we can see all of the specs of those different things. And I love this. I think this is amazing. This is the kind of stuff that I should have been documenting all along, but have been too lazy and sidetracked to do. And I really feel like RackPeek makes this simple, super simple to keep track of everything. What services are on what hardware, that sort of thing. I think Tim here's done a great job with this. So it's hardware, again, systems. We looked at services. We can see the service, the IP address, the port, what protocol, is it TCP, is it UDP, whatever. You can put in the URL of that service and kind of turn this into a dashboard. Again, this runs on TrueNAS. We can add tags, we can add notes. I can keep scrolling down and we can see all of the different things that I've added to my setup here for services that are running. And then we've got docs, which kind of gives, looks like documentation for basically everything that you're looking for all the different things that you can enter. So that's pretty cool. In fact, I think that's relatively new as well. So that's basically it. That more or less kind of gives you an idea of what RackPeek is, what its function is, how you can kind of add all of your different servers and network stuff and PCs and laptops and all that stuff. Very, very easy to put in here and keep track of without all of the effort of trying to document it in, say, like a note-taking application or something like that. So I guess with that little demonstration out of the way, let's take a look at how easy this is to get installed. So to get RackPeek installed, we're going to come back to the GitHub repository here. We're just going to scroll down until we get to that Docker Compose that we were talking about earlier. I'm going to copy this, but I'm not going to copy the version. With the newest version of Docker Compose, the version here at the top is obsolete, so we don't need that. I'm going to go ahead and grab this information right here, copy this. There's a couple of different ways we could do this. Like here is our Docker Compose. I actually want to create a new one so that you guys can see that whole process. So we're going to exit out. We're going to create a new folder here. We're going to say mkdir rack tut and then cd into rack tut, and then we'll do nano compose.yaml. You could do Docker Compose. I've learned a while back that Compose it will also work. So I've been using that for the last several months. Again, we've got our services listed up here at the top. We can see our service name. You can name that whatever you'd like. For the image, we're not going to touch that. We're going to leave that alone. The container name, I'm going to name this RackPeek Tut. If I left it at RackPeek, it would throw up a hissy fit because I've already got that installed. For our ports, we're going to change this to 8765, just picking a number there. Our RackPeek config, I'm going to change this as well to tut, and then I'm going to change this as well, just because I've already got one of these already installed on this IP address on this little LXC. And I want to make sure that things are different enough that we don't run into issues. So with all of this as it needs to be, I can do Control O and enter an X, and then I can clear my screen and do Docker Compose up-D. So it's going to pull the most recent version, the latest version. You can see how fast that went. So we're going to do this. We're going to do 8765. And hey, look, there we go. That's how easy it was to install. There is no authentication on here, at least at the time of recording this video. That may change in the future, but I wanted to make you aware that I didn't log in. So currently there is no authentication on this, so probably don't expose this without some sort of authentication layer in front of it. But again, if you wanted to from here, you can just click on hardware, and then you select your subcategory. In this case, let's call it servers, prox, cube, and then click add, and then just fill in the blanks and click save. It's pretty straightforward stuff there. So I would encourage you to install this and take a look at it. If you like it, definitely head over to the GitHub repository and star it, watch it maybe. Again, everything will be linked in the video description if you want to go check everything out. I think that's it. I think that's all that we needed to talk about with regards to RackPeek. Again, this is still being actively developed, so things may change. In fact, I can almost guarantee things will change. So be aware of that. Keep tabs on any kind of breaking changes and that sort of thing, so that you don't get all your stuff built out and have it borked by a change. So keep tabs on that. But I think with all that said, I'm going to wrap this up. If you'd like early access to my content when it's available, that also includes no ads. You can become a channel member or a patron. Again, links to all of that in the video description. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap up this video. Thank you guys for spending a few minutes of your day with me here today, and I'll talk to you in the next video.